Welcome to Talking Science, where we dive into the latest news from space and science. The Australian Telescope Director of the Square Kilometer Array, Dr. Sarah Pearce, has beamed in. Dr. Pearce, thanks for your time.
Hi, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on.
Now, Dr. Pearce, what will the Telescope Director be responsible for?
Well, Matt, the Square Kilometer Array is a collaboration of 15 countries, and it's going to build two radio telescopes, the next generation of radio telescopes, the best in the world, be in South Africa, and then I will be director responsible for the one in Australia. And that's going to be what we call a low-frequency radio telescope. So it'll cover between 50 and 350 megahertz, for those of your listeners who are interested in such things. And it will be 130,000 antennas spread across the desert in Western Australia. And we're going to start building it towards the end of this year, maybe early next year.
Well, you've come from the acting chief scientist post of the CSIRO, where you were part of the astronomy and space science division. How have things changed there since the Australian Space Agency was formed?
Yeah, look, the formation of the Space Agency has been amazing in the way that it has encouraged and coordinated the space community across Australia. I have never seen any in the time that I have been in Australia in terms of the space sector. There's startups being formed, there's university groups focusing on space, there's industry playing roles in sort of national and international space activities. So the agency really has kind of catalyzed an enormous amount of work.
Now, you're familiar with the Square Kilometer Array already, I believe, having led the CSIRO's engagement in the international project. What will it be like to now move to the SKA full-time?
Yeah, look, it's an amazing opportunity. So as you say, as part of my role in CSIRO for the last 10 years, I've been helping to lead Australia's engagement in SKA, and I was one of the negotiating team who set up the SKA treaty between the countries who are going to build it. Now this is an opportunity to kind of really focus on this mega science project for Australia and really help deliver this, both for Australia, but also for the international astronomy community that will use the telescope.
I spoke with Curtin Uni's Nick Swainston a few weeks ago. He used data from the Murchison Wide Field Array to find a pulsar. Now, with that telescope array being the precursor to the Square Kilometer Array, what other discoveries are potentially on the horizon?
So, yeah, that was great work by Curtin to find that first low-frequency pulsar. So the real kind of core science goal of the low-frequency part of the Square Kilometer Array is to find what we call the dawn, or the epoch of reionization more technically. This is the time after the Big Bang when the first stars and galaxies started to shine in the sky. And there is no telescope yet that has been able to detect this. We hope that SKA will be able to detect it and possibly even image it for the first time in the world. So we'll find out much more about how those first stars and galaxies were formed and what that early universe looked like.
Now, as you said earlier, this is a multinational project with us taking the cake for the largest telescope of its kind, and we'll be hanging out in the lower frequencies. South Africa will be home to another array, and they'll be observing the higher frequencies. And the UK has the global headquarters. Are there challenges in working collaboratively across continents?
Look, I really enjoy this kind of international project, and the treaty negotiations that I was a part of were really one of my career highlights because everybody is focused in the same direction. So everybody wants to build the best radio telescopes in the world. So it's a really great collaboration. The other good thing about working internationally, a country can bring their own kind of expertise. So the telescope will be built of parts constructed in different countries and then brought to Australia and South Africa and integrated. And so we have the countries like India who are working on the software, China who are building the dishes for the South African version of the telescope. And in Australia, we'll be doing things like building the infrastructure for the telescope and some of the really high-speed digital signal processing that will go into it. So bringing all that work together internationally so that you know that you've got really the very best of the world's radio astronomers and engineers working for the same project is really very exciting.
And I guess that's one thing to not forget as well in this project, that even though South Africa and Australia have the telescope arrays on the ground, there's many more countries involved in this collaboration to better understand the early universe.
Yeah, that's right. Look, we have many of the world's largest astronomy kind of countries engaged, and more becoming more engaged all the time. So since I've been involved in the project, it's gone up, and now we've got kind of 15 or 16 countries who are interested in being involved. And so, it brings its own challenges, of course, and being in Australia, time zones are perhaps our key challenge, and finding times to have meetings when everybody from Canada through Europe, through India, China, and Australia can all join in can be difficult. But I find it really energizing to be involved in projects of this kind of scale. And it's the first time Australia will have hosted one of these international mega science projects. So it's a great opportunity for us.
Well, there's going to be 131,000 dipole antennas in Western Australia alone, looking like Christmas trees, I believe. How exactly do they gather radio waves?
Yeah, so it's a bit like, say, your TV antenna. So they can pick up the radio waves like your TV antenna does, but they're very, very faint, what we're trying to listen to. And so we need to amplify the signals, and then because we've got 130,000 antennas, we need to join them all together in different ways, depending on what we're looking for. Why do we need so many antennas? Well, because we need high sensitivity. So you can't see what we're looking for with just one of these. You couldn't see it with your TV antenna. But we also need them spread out. So they'll be spread across 60 kilometres of the desert in Western Australia in order to give us really fine resolution. So the further apart things are spread, the more detail you can see. But the more antennas you've got, the fainter things you can see. And so that's why we've got such a lot and so spread out.
And the best part about the Murchison area of Western Australia is that it's really radio quiet, which is why the wide field array has been so successful. Now moving into the Square Kilometer Array, that radio dead silence is key.
Yes, so absolutely. Because what we are trying to detect is so quiet, we really need to go where there's no interference. And although in the past you might have been able to build radio telescopes just on the outside of Sydney, which was where some of the first ones in Australia were built, now there are way too many people and we have way too many things that cause interference. So almost every kind of electronics that you use, from your mobile phone, your computer, your car, it all causes radio interference. So we need to go where there are very few people. And that's why our telescope will be built in the Murchison, around 350 kilometres from Geraldton, which is the nearest city. And similarly, the South African telescope will be in the Karoo, which is also a remote area of South Africa. And
it is going to be very, very exciting. I guess from a very early stage, it's been in development and the ideas have been floating for many years. Now we're moving into this construction phase. What's the energy like now with the Square Kilometer Array project?
Yeah, it's great. In fact, just recently in Australia, we've put out the first call for industry to be involved in building things as part of the Square Kilometer Array. I've been involved for 10 years in SKA, and there's people who've been involved for a long time before that. So it's fantastic to finally be at the stage where we have countries committed, and we've got the telescope design ready, and we're really getting now ready, just putting the finishing touches on so that we'll be ready to start building towards the end of this year or early next year, as I say. So that's going to be a great day when we kind of have shovels in the ground.
Well, jumping ahead a little bit, I cannot wait until construction is complete. Observing begins at that stage. Plenty of fascinating things out there to learn, I'm sure. Dr. Pearce, thanks for beaming into the Talkin' Science and good luck in your new role.
Thank you very much. It was great to talk to you.
Keep up to date with Twitter. Catch new podcasts daily on YouTube. Plus, we're beaming to your favorite podcast app 5 days a week. Just search for Trekzone and subscribe.